If you've ever heard of a Texas Mountain Laurel, sometimes they're called mezcal beans. Their seeds are super hard to propagate for most people. I'm going to show you a quick and almost infallible way of doing it. You won't have 100% accuracy in propagating, but it's pretty simple. I just pulled this off the bush outside. If you're not aware of what a Texas Mountain Laurel is, they have super awesome purple flowers, somewhat like a vitex, but in the spring those flowers smell very much like grape Kool-Aid or grape bubblegum. So I'm going to show you how to take a seed pod, get the seed out of it, and then show you the seed here. So the pod's super leathery. I got two of them here. You probably can't see the other one on the counter, but they open up pretty easy. Just take a pair of scissors, cut the end off, snap it open, and you get a seed. So that's what the seed looks like. Not sure you can see. It just looks like a bean. There's a little white spot on one side. It's a little thin over this direction and a little fatter on this side, but that's what the seeds look like. So cut the top off, pop it open like a peanut, and you get your seeds. That's it, 2 seeds. All right, they're super hard. The outside is like almost like a lacquer is on there. If you go stick this in the ground, there's about a 99.999% chance it is going to rot long before it starts growing. And that's because before it can grow, this outer shell has to soften and then and soften enough for water to start getting into the inside, or the condylen, I think is what that's called, and start growing. So the best method to open those up, I'm going to move you down here and I'm going to show you exactly what you do. All right, now I'm working around a tripod, so you have to give me a little give me a little leeway. All you do is take your pair of scissors, and don't throw the bean across the floor. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the scissors and we're going to use the scissors to slowly cut away. I don't know if you can see that. I'm just slowly nipping away at the outer surface. Now, if you try to take too big of a bite at one time, what'll end up happening is you'll cut in and kill the seed. But you won't know that until you plant it, and then of course it just rots and doesn't come up. So you can see I took a bunch of shavings off of that. If I can get that to focus, and you can barely tell. Like, the only way to tell is that it's just not as bright there. But we're gonna keep going, and there's just a ever slightly less covering on it. So we'll just keep going and keep chipping away. And what you want to do is keep chipping until you can just barely see a little bit of white. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But there you can see the spot I've been cutting into it, if you can see that. So it's still red, which means we have coating. So we'll just keep going. Just keep cutting. On occasion you'll get a good bite and it'll actually pop a piece off, almost like a Boston baked bean piece of candy where the outer shell comes off. But we just keep getting at her. We're getting close. I'll show you again here. So you can see we're getting through that shell, but we're not quite there yet. So you just keep chipping away. I will say it's really hard to do this when you're leaning over a camera. Oop, and maybe it would be helpful for you guys to, you know, get this in front of the camera. But eventually we'll get through this shell, and just the ever slightest bit of white will show through. And it doesn't take much. Okay, there, I got through the shell. That last cut, you see now, there's a distinct white piece. The minute you get to that point, do not go any further. And then I'll show you, I'm gonna do the other one real quick, and I'll show you what we do. On the second seed, I had a bit of I popped the whole chunk off. Now, I don't know if I can get this to focus. That may have killed the seed. It's hard to tell. You can sometimes look at the other side. Give me a second. So this fell in the kitchen sink, but there's the other side of it. And there's a lot of white on that. So we may have killed this seed and gone too far, but you won't know until you get it in the ground. And so what do you do from here? You want to make sure that you're far enough in that it can start soaking up water. So all you do is take a paper towel and soak it in some cool water. Make sure it's super wet. All you do is you take a plate, take your wet paper towel, and you just stick these seeds in here and cover them up. Now what'll happen here is that the water will start to soak into the actual seed because you split open that shell, and enzymes will actually start breaking down that shell from internally. And what we'll do is we'll come back in a little while, maybe an hour, and I'll show you what the seeds look like after they've soaked up some water, and how you can tell that you've gone far enough into the shell to get it to propagate. So I'll be back in a second. Guys, ignore the glare from the light, but we're back. It's probably been 45 minutes, but the main thing you're looking at here is whether or not that seed is soaking up water. And if you can see here, that's the area we cut out, and if I turn it to the side, you can clearly see that seed is soaking up water. That's a good sign. Now, I may have cut too deep on this one given the size of the opening, but you want to make sure the test you're doing here and soaking them in water is making sure that they can soak up water. Now, you cannot let them get dry after that. Now, even on this little one, you'll see that little tiny spot we cut. It is soaking up water, and you can just barely see it sticking out of the top there. I'll put it against the contrast of the plate. But that's what you want. You want that internal condylen, I think. I don't know. I need to look that word up. The internal guts of the seed, whatever that scientific name is, has to start soaking up water. And the minute it does that, and you confirm it does, and this one clearly shows it growing, you can see it sticking off the top of the seed. That tells you that that seed is ready to germinate. So we're going to go outside. I'm going to throw some potting soil into a pot, and we'll get it some water and go from there. This process is pretty simple. I'm using Pennington's Rejuvenate potting soil. Use anything that's made for outdoors pots. You know, just be cautious with too much peat. Peat's great for holding water, but the minute it gets dry, it becomes it repels water, and it's hard to get it wet again. So I'm just gonna fill this. I've got a root maker pot. You can use whatever pot you want. I love root makers because they build a good network of roots. But I'm gonna fill it up. We'll put the seeds in there, and I'll put some water to it. Alright, so I got it filled up, and now I'm just going to plant the seeds about 1 inch deep. That's already super wet, but I'm going to hit it with some water anyway. Here we go. that's it. We're done. Stand you back up here. That's as simple as it gets. Flip this around. That's as simple as it gets. It's, you know, just trying to cut through that really hard shell enough to get it to start soaking up water. And then once you see it soaking up water and it's got some good water in it, put it in a pot and soak it down, and it'll continue its process. So I'm gonna get the hose, put some water on top of that till that, I mean, that dirt's already super wet anyway, but I'll get some water on it, get it soaking, and hopefully you have good luck doing this. Hey, just a quick update on the Texas Mountain Laurel seeds we planted. One thing to keep in mind with these, I just weed eated, so there's junk all in here. None of those actually growing. When these start to grow, they'll put in a deep, they will set a deep taproot before they come above ground. They spend all their seed energy, or most of their seed energy, growing a taproot. So right now, if we dug in, we can check to see if the seeds are viable and they're growing. But it can take, you know, a couple weeks for them to actually start throwing up a shoot. So keep that in mind. You won't see much activity up front because, again, that taproot is their primary focus before they throw up anything above ground. All right, guys, back to it. I'll put it how many days it's been in the on the screen here. I don't remember how many days it's been, but here's the pot where we planted the 2 seeds that we had to cut open from the Texas Mountain Laurel, and as you can see, they're starting to sprout. When you plant these, you have to remember that they spend the majority of their seed energy to put in a really deep taproot. Sometimes it can go down 6 inches or more before they start coming up. But here we have both of the seeds that we messed with and planted, and they're coming out. So remember, got this weed in the way. Just remember, you know, if you cut into the condylen, it's going to kill it. But if you're careful and just get a little bit off and make sure that you soak them first to see that they're pulling in water, you will get really good propagation. In this case, right, these were only 2 seeds, so not a great example, but we got 100%. And last year I did, I think, 6 of them just as a test case, and I got all but one came up. And in fact, that's one of the seeds from last year. So this is a great way to do it. It's not very hard. If you can find one of these plants in the wild, you can get many seeds, and there's a really good chance that you'll have a high propagation rate. So if you try to do it naturally and soak them and all the other nonsense you can find online, it's going to be difficult, and then they're going to fail. But the method I show you here is not a guarantee, but it's pretty darn close. And if you try this out, put some comments below. Let us know how it goes for you, and hopefully this helps you out. Again, this is a Texas Mountain Laurel. Great plant, drought hardy after they're established, and some of the best blooms in the spring. They kind of look like Vitex, but they smell like grape Kool-Aid, and just an overall great plant in the yard. So anyway, if you have any questions about what to do, put them in the comments, and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have, assuming I can actually answer them. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. Got other things going on, like the water tank project and the new well house project and some concrete work. So I know this may not be your ball of wax and why you're following the channel, but thanks for hanging with me. Like, more importantly, subscribe, and comment and let me know what you think. Take care.